stinking, vile cesspool of untreated sewage in 1953, and you could smell it from the freeway. As a child, I'd peek over the car window and sneak a look out at the stagnant bay and rotting wood. When I look back, the smell was unbearable, and I still remember it. Later, the city of San Francisco had changed. I was still driving on the freeway along the Mudflat, but over the years, the land had changed. The Mudflat was different. It was now an art gallery, and I could see strange wooden figures as I drove to work. They passed quickly, and there was never any time to know who built them or why. The road to San Francisco had become a drive-through art gallery. Thousands of motorists fled every day, but it was the era of the automobile stopped only for traffic. There were giraffes, wooden ships, and kangaroos along the freeway each morning. People came from all over to build Chinese dragons, elephants, fish, and totem poles. But you never saw anyone building these huge, mysterious sculptures. I was drawn to the Mudflat. Some said the place was magic, sacred. Like Easter Island, these sculptures were artifacts of our culture. Only they were temporary, disposable, changing daily. The Mudflat was in a time warp, and this was a stage where people could play out their temporary dreams.
Daring defiance of death!
It was a carnival, and inside every sculpture there was a story. Each figure was an echo of a youthful memory, fantasy. The sculptures were actors frozen in time, and this was a stage where people could play out their dreams. Who built this art? I began to spend all of my time trying to find an answer to that question.
Maybe the first question is, what is a salt marsh? To a lot of people, it probably appears to be just sickly plants and smelly muck, but it's a lot more than that. This is one of the most productive environments on the face of the earth. It's more productive than a rice paddy or an Iowa cornfield. And it's an enormously intricate laboratory for mixing water and nutrients and sunshine to produce a tremendous abundance of life. The water flowing in and out of this marsh. And at the same time, it's tremendously fragile and susceptible to human disturbance. 20 years ago, you couldn't even come out here. It was one stinking mass of human sewage. But now the marsh is growing again. There are clapper rails back in the cordgrass. There can be up to 10,000 shorebirds here at one time. Every year, Arctic terns come in through the Golden Gate and stop here for a few days, the only place on the Pacific coast of North America. You never know what kinds of things you can find here. This whole area around San Francisco Bay and up into the Delta and in the Central Valleys was very likely the richest place on the entire face of the earth after the end of the Pleistocene. There were more large animals and large birds here, greater concentrations of life than any place else, including the Great Valleys of Africa. It's an incredibly fragile place, more fragile than these delicate ephemeral sculptures that people put up. The remarkable thing is, here we are in San Francisco Bay, in the middle of one of the largest urban and industrial areas in the United States. We're surrounded by freeway, and if you can just turn your back on it for a moment, there's all of this abundance and activity going on. For me, it's a very powerful affirmation of life.
This is the Emeryville Mudflat. Good place to find clams. I use the driftwood here to make sculpture. This driftwood's been coming in here for hundreds of years. I understand that some of the stuff is teak wood. They used to use it for pallets. stuff that had come in from the Orient. And there's also all kinds of styrofoam floats from boats that get wrecked. And as you can see, there's the bottles and tires. And then there's plywood and, you know, just about anything that you need seems to be here when you need it. People have been putting up sculpture here since the 50s, or possibly before. They used to have duck blinds out here for the hunters, and I think they used to decorate them up. Then when the freeway was put in the early 50s, people would put up these sculptures, mainly oriented so that they could be seen from the freeway, so they tend to be rather one-dimensional. Some say that some art classes from the local colleges came out here, and again in the early 50s, and started putting up the sculpture. See all kinds of people out here, especially on weekends. There'll be you know, young couples putting signs, you know, welcome home so-and-so, political advertisements, you know, different, you know, like there's some kind of a union thing going on here with the Teamsters and the markets right now. Peace signs, swastikas, everything out here. This sculpture, it comes and goes. You've got people out here all the time building things, taking pieces off other people's sculpture. This is fine. The kids come out and run around on it, and it gets knocked down by the wind or the water. But it doesn't matter. You know, we find pieces here and there, and we use them or discard them. That's a lot of the beauty of this place. Is it's sort of like graffiti. Nobody takes it too seriously. It's just for fun. This is my sculpture. I built it primarily as a place for exhibiting other pieces of sculpture. It was fun building it. As it stands, it's a good sculpture. But I'm going to put other things such as a ballerina, and I have various ideas of things I'd like to put up on the top of it. With this freeway out here, I get great exposure. Thousands of people see this thing, but I built this thing for the fun of it. I come out here in my spare time. If the winds or the tides or the vandals are liable to knock this thing down in a week, or maybe be here for years. But I had my fun in building the thing, and I'll keep on building here. I don't care if my sculpture or any of this stuff out here really gets preserved, except maybe on film. The beauty of it to me is the fact that it's transitional, just like these tides coming and going. It's always changing.
The train is now dilapidated and broken down, but at the time we did it, we had gone to great detail and make it as authentic as we could. We had a dining car and a caboose. Dining car had tables and chairs, and it had lights and fixtures within it. We had an oil car and even a coal car with a few pieces of coal that we could find laying around. And also I thought of the train as a large toy, and if you look at it, it looks much like a toy set. And I think that's one thing I wanted to get across in this sculpture. It kind of represented to me somewhat of the fantasy of my youth. I remember trains in the area. I remember passing a train as I was on my way to the project. Basically, the whole sculpture is just made out of junk that was laying out there. It was very important to me not to import anything except perhaps as nails to hold the figures together, but not to bring anything from the outside world to the Mudflats, because that would have been, in a sense, litter. I wanted to do something that was going to last. I wanted to do something that people were going to notice, and something that they were going to enjoy seeing day after day. Now it's been 2 years.
This is one of my favorite places. I've always cared a lot for marshes and mudflats, this kind of intertidal zone, which is never really the same. It's always changing. In fact, you can feel it. We're on about 100-foot layer of soft bay mud. In fact, when we embedded the post into the ground, you could feel the shock waves going out. That's a Davis bicycle up there. And those are all pieces of things that had been here before. Some of them are for signs that had sort of talked about the International Hotel, saving it. Other things were a danger piling. This is a sculpture made by my friends in honor of my 50th birthday. I can't think of a nicer birthday present.
It was called canned fish. It isn't made from material that's found there, yet the fact that it was a fish and also the fact that it's recycled material seemed to make it fit into the mudflat concept.
At first, we were thinking of building one of the great symbols of the church, but we decided on a bald eagle instead because it was Washington's birthday.
We wanted to wish everyone a happy Halloween, We're not artists. What we call our piece, a scarecrow in a pumpkin patch.
I wasn't one of the instigators, but someone got the idea to build a Peterbilt truck on the Mudflat. And it was to everybody's amazement, as a matter of fact. You know, when about 5 o'clock it was just getting dark, and some trucks started going by on the freeway, and some of them started honking their horns at it, and we realized that it could be recognized as actually, you know, a truck, because we couldn't really tell at the time.
We call it the summer solstice totem pole that 25 people helped make. To me, the totem pole is very special because a lot of people had come together, touched it, built it, added some spirit, and then took it to the mud flats and put it in this unique area that the Costanoan Indians also thought was unique. If you look closely at the totem pole, it reminds me of the Kootsuk cult.
A long time before this was a sculptural park, this was an important Indian site. About 3,000 years ago, this was the center of activity for Costanoan Indians, and one of the largest Indian shell mounds in California was situated about 300 yards from here. The Indians were no doubt attracted to the area by the abundant shells, the birds, and the fish that were here. These are some artifacts excavated from the shell mound in 1924, and the first of these is a bone whistle with one hole which may have been used in a dance pavilion or sweat house on top of the mound. The second piece is a quartz crystal, probably from the Sierra Nevada, and such pieces as these indicate trade between coastal people and the mountain people. This crystal was used as a wand, or was the end of a wand, and is decorated with small shell beads. 3,000 years ago, the land probably looked a lot like this, and over there you can still see the place where the original mound was, and there may have been a temescal, or sweat house, on top of the mound at that time. In 1878, a dancing pavilion was built on top of the mound, and it became a part of what was called Shell Mound Park. The population of the East Bay grew tremendously at the turn of the century, and there was an influx of people who worked in the machine shops and local industry. After the First World War, industry grew along the San Francisco Bay, and in the 1920s the automobile became a more common means of transportation. Unfortunately, Shell Mound Park and the old Indian Mound were completely leveled in the name of progress to make way for new industry. In 1924, when the mound was being destroyed, an archaeologist named Skank estimated that there were about 600 burials underneath the floor of the old dancing pavilion.
This piano came from the home of Joseph Emery, the founder of Emeryville. My name is Madeline C.B. Thompson. My grandfather, Captain Ludwig C.B., founded Shell Mound Park, an organizational picnic grounds, in 1878. I grew up there until 1924, when the land was sold for industrial purposes. I would like to show you some pictures of my family and of the park. This picture is a very important picture. It was taken in 1907, right after the earthquake and fire. My grandfather and father invited refugees from San Francisco to stay in the huge dance pavilion and also in tents outside. The picture shows my grandfather, my father, and some of the employees, and also Temescal Creek, which ran through the park. Shell Mound Park was an organizational picnic grounds, and for the Midsummer Day and the Swiss Relief and the German Day in October were those that drew the largest crowds. The Swedish organization had a Midsummer Day annually, and at that time they erected a huge maypole which was very beautiful with streamers and flowers. The first picnic was always the first Sunday in March, because there used to be a big worry, was it going to rain then? And that made quite a difference as to how many people came. There was always worrying about the weather. And the picnic season extended to the first Sunday in October. And then after that, why, the shooting season began. I also remember that in 1923, a film director named Erich von Stroheim used the merry-go-round in his film Greed. When I look back at the Maypole, the dance pavilion, and the picnics at Shell Mound Park, those were some of the happiest days of my life.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I call your attention to the rope precariously stretched above the abyss yonder. A death-defying, daring act of courage will now be performed by the great, the fearless Cliff Spenger.
All right,
look back, looking back at those times, when I look back,
This was probably the richest place on the face of the earth after the end of the Pleistocene. Hundreds of thousands of tule elk here and in the Delta and in the Central Valley, the center of abundance for grizzly bear, tremendous numbers of pronghorn antelope, vast numbers of waterfowl coming down and wintering here. It would fill the sky for hours as they flew by.
The weird thing is I never saw anybody building anything out there. You'd go out and one day there would be very little and the next day there was a whole group of things, like it sprung up out of the mud. I never knew where it came from or who did it. It made me curious. We worked most of the day on what was to be the RKO Tower from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It lasted about 5 seconds and we gave up.
I didn't notice my sculpture from the freeway when I was just driving by.
I get tired of looking at that same old stuff day in and day out, day in and day out.
It might be down. Well, you know how things are out here. They don't last forever. I hope it's still up, though.
But, you know, I would really like very much to go down there and take a hatchet and render some of that junk back into junk in order just to make some more scraps for the next person to come along and pick up and have some building materials. You know, they want to put their name on it. They want to own it. And see, I built that. That's mine.
Well, it's down. I didn't think it would stay up forever, but I thought it would last a little longer than this. It hasn't even been up a year. Wish I could have been here when it toppled, though. It would have been interesting. Pretty impressive, you know, seeing that thing fall. I don't know if it was the wind or the vandals that got it. Looks kind of interesting, though, laying here. There's lots of good wood that can be used for other sculptures. Get a little bit sad. A lot of work went into these things. And I know it's part of the process out here, but I've had a lot of fun with it. Somebody will probably take this wood and use it for other things. I think I may get started, and I'll use some of this wood to build something else. I'll probably get going on it maybe this afternoon or tomorrow.
The nature of the Mudflat was contradiction and change. It was an art gallery where the art was destroyed. It was a wildlife sanctuary where they killed ducks. Building and destruction, these activities went on side by side. It had always been that way. An entire civilization had thrived and vanished on this spot without a trace. An American era had come and gone. So what was the driftwood art? It was a monument to change. It reflected the nature of the land. It was on the delicate, changing edge of the earth. The beauty of it was that it was transitional, just like the tides coming and going. It was always changing, and it was preserved for a while on film.